Hey guys, Gnomonkey here. This is going to be a kind of different video. I'm going to be recording this one live, so I'm sure I'll be making some mistakes. You might be wondering why this video looks kind of weird and wonky, like why is my UI all small? Well, I've actually completely deleted my settings file out of the Runelite folder, so I have a completely fresh install of Runelite. So what I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be going through each plugin, and I'm going to be changing the settings according to what I use normally. I'll probably do some cuts in post and do some voiceover to try to keep this flowing correctly, but we're just going to start from there. Before I do anything, I'm going to get stretch to fix mode on. There we go. I'm actually going to change this a little bit too. You want to turn these on and keep that at 100%. Keeps the UI a little bit crisper. These are the settings I use normally. Just so you know, I play on a 1440p screen. If you play normally on like a 1080p screen, that's probably the most common. The settings will be a tiny bit different. Let's go into my Runelite settings. This is the default hub for all of the basic settings for Runelite. Almost everything can be found here that's basic. So let me copy over what I use. So for my resolution, since I'm on a 1440p monitor, I'm going to enter, whoa. There we go. This just changes the window to match your game size. So you want to match this to whatever your resolution is. Let's see. Let's keep the window size. Don't need to lock the window size. A lot of these settings are going to vary from person to person. This is just what I use. Remember client position, yes. Enable custom window Chrome, yes. Yes, 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 yes. We're not going to keep it always on top. This means if you put like a program, let's say you open a calculator, if you move it to your window that has Runelite open, it'll appear underneath, so you can't even access that calculator. So we typically don't want that, but it is useful in some cases. No. I'll just keep this off. Kind of unnecessary. I don't really use these hotkeys, but you can adjust these to be what you want, so you can open the side panel at will. I do want tray notifications. Don't need to request focus. That's kind of annoying. I use a custom sound in my folder. You can use the native sound that just uses Windows notification sound if you want, or you can just turn it off if you don't want notification sounds. Going to enable game message notifications. That makes things appear down here. Really helpful for things that like NMZ, so you know like what notification you missed, like if it's a power surge. It's helpful in more places than that. That's just in general. I wanted to send notifications both because sometimes I've clicked on my screen, but I'm still looking at a different monitor, so I still want it to notify me. I keep a small font for the tooltips. That's these that appear when you hover over something. I want to keep those small. Like if I do regular or... not this. Like, that's too big. I like things small. I keep the interface font at regular because I want that to be big. That's things like this. I want those to be at least a decent size. Require shift for overlay menu, yes. Tooltip position under cursor, yes. I want these to display vertically. So like that. Info box size. I keep that all stock. Keep the overlay color. This is really handy if you have macro keys on your mouse, because for some reason RuneScape just counts those as clicks. So if you turn this on, that stops happening. And it's really annoying if you don't do that. Okay, that's all the basic stuff out of the way. Before I do anything else too, I want to go to the plugin hub. This has all of the external plugins, and these are monitored by the Runelite team. They don't break rules, but they're not quite good enough to make it to the main build, so they just kind of stay here. Definitely worth looking through these. I do have a video on that, which I'll put at the top right, probably right now. But what I'm going to install before anything else is inventory setups. This, I don't understand why it doesn't come with the default Runelite. It should. It's one of the best plugins, and I use it constantly. Definitely install that. Other than that, the others are handy, and you definitely want to look through if you want to use them. But none of them are necessary. I think inventory setups is necessary, honestly. It's that good. Let me just quickly explain the layout of this. These stars here will pin plugins to the top. And one of the main ones I'll do is metronome. Metronome just plays a tick sound, so you can count ticks in your head. So I like to pin that because I sometimes turn it on or off. It's like that. Also, before I would do anything, I'm on a separate client completely, so I'm not going to. But I would log into your Google account for Runelite. This makes it so if you go to runelite.net on your Google account, it stores all of this information, like loot you've gotten, your Grand Exchange history. It'll store all of it. So that's all really, really handy to have. Definitely log in before you do any crazy setup. Okay, let's take a look here. Account. Yes, we want it to sync with our Google account. Let's see, agility. I think that all stays the same. If you find some of the colors annoying, you could turn some of this off. But honestly, by default, this is all correct. Ammo. That shows the current ammo you have equipped, and it would be like right here. Definitely handy to have. Before I do anything else, actually, let me mention that if you hold Alt, you can actually move these. And if you put them to these blue boxes, it'll pin them here. And you can even move things like the whole mini-map. Like, I want it down here now. You can do that. Like, you can go nuts with this. Definitely play around with that. I move things all the time. Moving enemy health bars is one of the most useful things. I usually pin it up here. Animation smoothing. This is kind of a controversial one. A lot of people don't like it. It's kind of, you'll see in game, you have kind of like janky, slow movements. But if I turn on animation smoothing, suddenly it becomes buttery smooth. This plugin's really, really important for Sepulchre specifically, but other than that, it doesn't matter too much, and it's mostly aesthetics. Anti-drag. Okay, this one is very, very helpful. And it used to be that it was called a shift anti-drag, and it would only work during shift, but they actually changed this plugin to be called anti-drag, so it works in general as well. So I turn this on, and I actually make it so it's not on shift only. And let me just make sure this is the same. Yes. So I keep it like this. Disable and control press is kind of handy, but I don't keep it at a crazy delay. I only keep it at 10. So what this is going to do is as you click, see how there's a slight delay now when I drag? So this makes it really easy. Like say you're doing dense essence at ZMI, or not at ZMI, at Blood Runecrafting. You can quickly use a chisel on your essence blocks and they won't move. See, if I do this, they're not switching position ever, and I'm perfectly doing it. I think 10 is what I've determined. This is a pretty good number to keep it at, but you can play around with that. Maybe something like 8 to 15 would be decent. You can also make it on shift only if you want it to only happen when you're holding shift and just be completely normal otherwise. This is really helpful for gear switches at places like raids, so I would definitely look into this if you're not using it currently. Let's take a look. Textiles. This is really important if you're running a pure and don't want to gain, let's say, XP and defense. You can completely disable worn styles. So let's say defense. Now I don't have the long-ranged option on my crossbow anymore, but if I turn it off, it's back. Really, really important if you're running a pure. Definitely use these. But I'm not running a pure, so I really don't use them. Really, the only thing I change here is I show Grand Exchange price of items. This is when you hover over them. And I show my seed vault value as well, which is handy. If you want to show the high alchemy price of items, you can do that here too. And your exact bank value down to the GP as well. I find this kind of annoying and I keep that off. And these are just in case you don't want to left click bank or anything like that, but usually you would want to keep this unless you have a specific setup. Keyboard bank pin is really important. Not really important, but it's going to save you a ton of time if you have a bank pin. I turn that on. Now I can just type on my keyboard to enter my bank. And it also has the benefit of being safe for streams, which is handy if you do any of that. So that's it for bank. Let's take a look. Bank tags. This is really helpful. I don't think I changed anything in here too much. Nope, this stays the same. But what this does is allows you to add tags to items. Let's do a test here. We can do edit tags. And let's say I want to find minerals when I type in rock, right? So if I type in rock in the search, now mineral shows up, even though that word isn't there. Super helpful if you have items that maybe you want to not type in the full Zamorak God Sword. You want to pull that out. You can just type in ZGS if you tag that. So you can go through your items and tag them if you want. Really, really handy. That's about it for that. Barbarian Assault. This just helps you in Barbarian Assault. This all stays the same. Barrows Brothers. Again, I keep this as default. This just shows some helpful stuff at Barrows. Blast Furnace. Let me see if I change anything here. I do. Oh, yeah. So these top two will show the hitboxes on the conveyor belts and the dispenser. This is really handy so you know where to click exactly when doing Blast Furnace. Blast Mine. I keep this as default. I haven't done a lot of Blast Mine, so I don't know if you would change any of this, but it looks like it's just overlays and warnings. You would probably want to keep all of this. Boost Information. Now, this one is important. This is really helpful on an alt. There's a couple things you would change. What I do for my main is I do use relative boost, display as info boxes, and I do always instead of boosted. This shows when a stat will change, and it's not showing it currently, which is kind of weird. Maybe it only does it after you use a potion, but normally it would have a timer here telling you when your stats are going to change. And this is handy if you are using an alt and like AFKing or just AFKing in general. You can have it warn you when your boost gets to a certain point. So I think it goes by level. Right, so this just says, hey, let's say I put this at 6. So when my super strength boost decays down to a +6, it'll go, hey, in red and in the timer here. And it'll go, hey, you need to reboost now. And if you put notify on boost threshold, when you get to that 6 boost, when it decays that low, it'll notify you and tell you, hey, you need to boost your pots again. Really, really handy. I don't have it notify me on my main, but you might want to personally if you're doing things like Slayer and AFKing a lot. Boss timers. This shows when a boss will respawn. Definitely just keep that on. Camera. Really, really important. Definitely. Let me get my exact info here. Okay, so we expand the inner zoom limit. That lets you zoom in further, so you can go in crazy like this. I expand the outer zoom limit. 120 is what I keep it at. That lets you see the whole chunk. We want to allow vertical camera. So normally you can only go to about here, but with vertical camera, you can go to a complete top-down view. Definitely handy. And then let's see. I don't have a control function, but you can use this with some keybinds for some fun setup. I keep this at default. This doesn't change too much. Zoom speed is kind of handy if you have a different like mouse wheel sensitivity or something. I just keep this at default though. Right click moves camera. I don't do any of this, and I don't want to open my menu with middle mouse because I'll usually move my camera by holding middle mouse button. So I keep that as is. And you can invert yaw if you're used to like flight sims or something, but I don't do any of that. I just keep it as is. That's it for camera. Cannon. You can have it warn you when your cannon runs out of stuff. We definitely want to show double hit spots. I do. We want the cannonball info box. This shows a little overlay when you have a cannon down, and it tells you how many cannonballs are in the cannon currently, which is really, really handy. And the rest of this I keep the same. You can have it warn you when you like run out of cannonballs or get low, but I don't really bother with that. Chambers of Zarek. I don't do enough raids to personally say, but I'll say like what from the little raids I've done, you definitely want to have a screenshot set for this. This just screenshots your overlay for scouts. Definitely handy if you're doing it. And have it saved to your clipboard, definitely. And you want this all on, and you want the show scout overlay inside every raid. That's just going to help you. And you can change your white listed rooms. So say I really want tightrope for the extra points, or I want crabs puzzles. Those will highlight in green. Or blacklisted, say you don't know how to do Vespula in a raid, then it'll show up in red, that kind of thing. You change this depending on how you want your raids. And that's going to differ depending on the person. Moving on. You can change your chat color. I don't bother with this. I keep it all default. It's fine to me, but you can play around with this. You can go really crazy with it. Change the transparencies. Everything you could possibly think of you can change, but I really don't. Okay, chat commands. Let me see if I change anything here. These show you, like, if you type in !KC, Like, let's say I don't know if it'll work with a new install, but let's say Jad. It's not working here, but here it would show my kill count after I had, played. And I keep everything default for this one. This is a very complicated one. I'm going to put what I type into my Discord or in the description below in a notepad, but I'm going to paste it right now. What you can do is you can tell the game, hey, don't show me specific words in a chat, and it'll just remove it from your chat, right? But sometimes you really don't want to use that too much, because if you're doing that, people are constantly going to be getting filtered. Maybe you can do that for slurs and things like that. You can also filter names, so that will make it so that names don't show up. So again, useful for slurs, I guess, if you're a streamer or something like that. The important one is regex. So this will smartly disable chat based on specific phrases and things like that. So it gets pretty complicated. This is all different code. And this is what I'm pasting in for myself. This gets rid of things like scams and beggars and people like doubling money, that kind of thing. Super annoying at the GE. This will get rid of all of that. So I'll paste this giant thing in a notepad, and you can just paste it in for yourself if you want to get rid of that annoying spam. Do I change anything else with this? Let me see. Nope, I keep everything else the same. You can play around with this if you need to change any of these settings for your chat, but I keep it all the same. Chat history. I think I keep this all the same. This just retains your history after you've relogged in your chat, so you don't lose it. And I keep this all default. Yeah, so I just keep this all at default, and then let's move on. Chat notifications. This is a handy one. This is helpful in kind of weird situations where I'll do my own name for sure. Notify on my own name. So when someone in your CC is like, hey, Gnome, it'll highlight my name. Definitely handy. Notify on highlight I will use, because what I put in here is things like when I'm thieving, I want your dodgy necklace has crumbled to dust. So now when that chat message enters my chat, when my dodgy necklace breaks, it'll notify me so I know, hey, I need to equip another dodgy necklace. This has a ton of uses, and it's useful for more than just this, but this is all I use it for currently. You can play around with this and use it for so many things. And definitely flick that guy on. Chat timestamps. That's a handy one. Turn this on, and I just keep this as black here. Hour, minute, that's fine for me. So now, if I type in chat, you can see this was at 5:19 that I typed that message. Definitely handy if you're looking at clan and someone says something and no one responds, and it's been like 10 minutes, and then someone awkwardly responds and like necros the chat. Something you want to avoid with timestamps, which can save you. Clue scrolls, display hint arrows. If you find those annoying, you can disable this. And this also shows the answers to clue scroll riddles, anagrams, ciphers, everything you can think of, honestly. A lot of people consider this cheating, and purists will disable it. I find clue scrolls pretty boring, and after you've done the 300th puzzle blocks, I really am fine with Runelite solving them for me, so I just keep it on. But this is on a case-by-case basis for sure. Combat level. This literally just shows my combat level right here. It also shows your level range in the wilderness, which is pretty handy. So I would keep all of this on. Cooking. This just shows your XP an hour, that kind of thing. And it shows your cook and burn rate, which is really handy. It'll show it in the top left. It'll be like this much cooked, this much burnt, percent burnt chance. It's pretty cool. Very handy while cooking. Corporeal beast. Show a damage overlay. This can be handy so you can see like your spec damage and that kind of thing. I don't do a lot of corp, so I can't say how helpful this is, but I would say probably just keep it on. Custom cursor, you can play around with this. I think the cursors are really ugly. Like, you can give yourself a dragon dagger if you want. The dragons can be, but I just keep it on default. Kind of ugly. Let's see. DPS counter. I'm iffy on this one. I keep it on my main. But this will show, like, down here, it'll show your damage. And it'll say, let's say you're killing Hydra, it'll show, hey, you're doing 8 damage per second. This can be handy in some cases where you're not sure, but I don't really look at it that much. You could keep this off if you want. Up to you. Daily task indicator. This is really, really helpful. I use it all the time. You can show all of these if you want. Say you've got the hard diary done for Ardoin and you want to claim that sand, go for it. I really think the only ones that are worth keeping on are herb boxes, staves, and where is it? Bone meal and slime. If you want charges on your bone crusher, even that I might turn off sometimes. And I don't even do herb box necessarily. So, but definitely you want to know you got to collect your battle staves every day. That kind of thing. But definitely play around with this. Whatever you want to collect, check it off and it'll warn you when you log in. I might have even done that. Yeah, you can see it here. I have herb boxes waiting to be collected and I have battle staves waiting to be collected. So it'll tell you when you log in. Very handy. Default world. I just find a world I like and keep it on this. You find a nice low ping world, and then every time you open the client, it'll default to that world. You can alternatively just have it use the last world you were logged into, but I would prefer to just have a world it puts me to every time. So I think my world I do by default is 428. That's a 2K total world, right? Yep, that's the one I'm on, actually. So I would do 428. And now the client will always default to that. Let's see, diary requirements. This is handy in your achievement diary. It'll show things like you need 5 thieving here, you need 15 fishing here. Really handy if you need to do your diaries. Keep that one on. Discord. This is cool because if you use a lot of Discord, it'll show on your profile literally what you are training and like what you're doing. So like if I hopped in Sepulcher here and I started doing runs, it would say, hey, I'm in Sepulcher and I'm training agility right now. So if people are like wondering, hey, are you available? Are you able to do a raid maybe? It'll be like, no, I'm doing Sepulcher right now. And it's really obvious. They don't even have to ask you. They can just look at your profile. Pretty cool. You can do a lot of this. You can hide it if you want, do whatever you want, show certain things. I like to just keep this all on default though. Driftnet fishing. I haven't even done that much driftnet fishing, but I would probably keep this on by default. It just shows you helpful things to highlight during driftnet fishing. Emojis. You can keep this off if you want, but it lets you put emojis in your chat. So if I type smiley face, it makes a little smiley face. Kind of cool. Can be kind of annoying. Depends on the person. Entity hider. This can be handy in a lot of cases. At places like, I don't know, you can use it at the most I can think of is Ardy Nights for thieving. This will prevent you from flickering there. Really, it doesn't have too much practical use unless you're really not wanting to look for other players and things like that. But if I just turn that on, I won't see any players, period. And you can play with things like hide local player. Now I'm gone. And you could still walk around, but I'm invisible, that kind of thing. You can do it for cool action shots too if you want, if you're doing, you know, video making or things like that. I don't know. I would just probably keep it on by default. Someone wants to enlighten me in the comments what that does, let me know. FPS control is cool. I keep it on so I can see my FPS up here. Really, really handy. You can actually see I'm already getting frame drops. I'll get to that in a minute. The max FPS in RuneScape currently is 50 FPS on the desktop client, and it's 60 FPS in mobile. So I just keep it at 50 here. You can make it so when you have clicked off the client, say on another monitor, it actually lowers the frame rate. So if I do this and I click off, if I click off, it turns red, and now I'm capped at 10 FPS. So it's not immediately obvious how helpful this would be, but at places like fishing where you're AFKing and maybe playing another video game on the side even, because Runelite takes no resources, you can do that. This will help you save some of your CPU power, which can be pretty handy. My computer's powerful enough, I don't have to bother, but depending on the person, say you're running a laptop or, you know, anything weaker, this might be worth looking into. But I usually just keep that off. Drawing the FPS indicator, very, very helpful. Where were we? fairy rings. This lets you search for your location in a fairy ring using tags. Super, super helpful. Just keep this guy on. I forgot that was even a Runelite feature. I thought that was in the original client, but it's not. Thank you, Runelite. Fishing. This is like the cooking one. It gives you help during fishing, shows you your catch rate, things like that. It'll highlight spots where you can fish. Very, very helpful. And you can play around with the colors, things like that. Definitely keep this guy on. You can just use the default settings if you want. I'm not entirely certain what this does, but I would probably just keep it on. Like before, if someone knows what this does exactly, let me know. Friend notes is really helpful. I'm not going to hover over the notes, but let's say I want to add a note for this fella. He's a fellow. Now it puts a little note here, and it says fellow when I hover over it. Really, really handy. With the friends chat, what I'll do is I will turn on the members counter. I believe. Yeah, so this shows when a clan member is next to you, and it'll do a little smiley face icon like here. Really, really helpful if you're doing things like raids or bossing with your friends, things like that. And it'll just show you when people are next to you. Pretty cool. I turn on confirm kicks and tab chat. So this tab chat prevents you from having to type the slash in your clan. If you just type here, it'll just type, and you can hit enter and it'll go straight in clan chat, like in RS2 if you did that. I also do confirm kicks. I'm a clan owner. I don't want to kick people on accident. Keep this on. It'll ask you when you kick someone, and then you can confirm. Other than that, I keep this mostly the same. GPU. This is my favorite plugin in the whole game. The reason for that is you can see I will get FPS drops sometimes depending on the situation. And that's because RuneScape only takes the power of your processor and not your graphics card. GPU plugin changes that. Now your GPU is taking some of the power. Let me get the exact settings I use. What I'll do is I change the draw distance to 90. See how that increased my distance? I could see a little bit. 90 will show the entire chunk loaded at a time. So normally the game will slowly load stuff as you walk. With this on, that won't happen anymore. I'll turn on some anti-aliasing. Let's see if there's a place I can show this off. You can see how much better the game looks already. Look at the difference. And it runs better. Just by doing that. We can see if we look at the jaggies like on this torch, if I turn on MSAA ×2, now this is a smooth torch. I keep this at ×2 because this is best for performance. Disabled is actually best for performance, and then ×16 is worse, but it looks the best. So play with this depending on your setup. I sometimes play other games in the background, so I just keep this at ×2 so I don't have to worry about it. UI scaling is kind of a weird one. You'll see my inventory is really blurry. What UI scaling does is changes that. So I keep it on nearest neighbors, look at how crystal clear that inventory looks. Some of these you might want to play around with, but my favorite is nearest neighbor. That's where I keep it. That's really sharp and clear what everything is. I like to turn on fog too. We can't really see it here. Let me try stepping outside. Yeah, so it has this like kind of dark transition between the pitch black and everything else. What's cool about the fog, too, is it'll color based on the area. We'll come back to that later. But Runelite actually adds colored skyboxes if you turn that on. And it'll change the color of the fog depending on the skybox, too. Very, very cool. You want to keep compute shaders on. This lets you extend the draw distance, and it's important to keep on. Oh, this is very important. Definitely turn this on. Enable OSB actively traded prices. When you look at the Grand Exchange under what you buy, it'll show the value of the item that you're buying based on OS Buddy's Grand Exchange prices. And I also like to show exact total value. Very handy to have. This is a kind of cool feature they added kind of recently. This lets you type in fuzzy. So let's say you misspell something by one letter, nothing shows up normally. But if we turn it on fuzzy fallback, then if you type something and are just barely off a character, it'll still show the item and you can click on it. Super, super handy. You can play around with these settings, see what you like. Ground items, probably my second favorite. This is such a good plugin. This honestly makes it the reason I don't play mobile very often, not for combat and things like that, because you can't see highlighted drops. So let's look through my exact settings of things I do. Let's pull up the item list here. Let me just copy paste what I put here. Dark totem. What you can do here is my asterisks here. Make it so any words after this are disregarded and highlight. So like dark totem, bottom, middle, top. Dark totem with an asterisk at the end covers all of that. Same with clue, that does all the clue scrolls. And fossil here, let's say it's a medium fossil, a small fossil, an asterisk at the beginning skips all of that, and any fossils will highlight. So that's what I do here. I hide certain items from showing up, which I really don't want to. Vial, ashes, coins, just basic garbage I don't want showing up. Actually, I have a bunch I add here, and let's do that. These come up in different situations, but things like leaping fish are annoying. Suka teeth you don't want to pick up a lot. I've just found these things are kind of annoying to, tell you that they are appearing, things that are untradeable, things like that. Let's see, we want to do this. Do not hide untradables. This will make it so it sends a message when you have an untradeable item. Menu item quantities is cool. We want to keep that. Keep all of this. I don't like highlighting tiles and things. That really makes the game look ugly, and it's hard to find things. I like to notify for highlighted drops because I change my value of the highlighted items, and I make sure there's only 4 items that are highlighted, so I want it to tell me when I get one. I don't bother adding a ton of items to this because of all the value stuff down here. It'll just tell you when you get an expensive drop. No need to have it here. Let's see. We want this all the same. Yes, 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 yes. Definitely worth playing around with here. Here you can hide an item from showing up if it has a certain value or less. For me, that's 300. I don't want any item that's worth less than 300 to show up. You want to keep it somewhat low because if a bunch of stackable items show up, you still want it to appear. Say you get, I don't know, a bunch of seed drops in a pile might be worth picking up if they stacked up to more than this 300 value. You can keep your colors roughly the same or play around with it. I do like an orange and then a bright orange and then a red here for the super valuable items, but you can just keep it as normal. That works too. Collapse ground items is extremely helpful. So I'll show this off. Let's say I drop a bunch of mahogany planks. If I right click this, it shows it all like this. So if I do collapse ground items, now it's like this. So you can pick up with right click. And this cleans it up so much. Definitely keep this on. Other than that, I keep everything basically the same. Moving on. Ground markers is big. This lets you shift click and mark tiles. You can change the colors of these and they'll actually retain their color depending on if you have this setting on, which definitely keep it that way. You can also draw tiles on the menu app. So if I do that, it'll show, hey, there's little tiles appearing up here. That kind of clutters the mini map and I don't like it like that. So I keep that off, but I can see you keeping it on too. It's up to you. Okay, herbivore. I keep this all as default. This just helps you when catching herbivore. Not much to talk about here. High scores is cool. This lets you look people up. This is this tab to the right here. So let's see. I want to look at my own stats. Gnome can do. And depending on if the high scores are working today or not, they're not. Well, what can you do? Depends on the day. You can also right click and look up people on the high scores. With this plugin, again, they're not working right now, but normally they would be. I would just keep this all on by default. This bounty hunter option is really good if you enjoy bounty hunter. And so look up the stats of your bounty hunter target, which is really handy if you see someone crazy hard or something like that. I don't do bounty hunter, so I'm keeping it off, but depends where you're at. Yeah, let's see. Hunter. This I would all keep on by default. This is just the color transitions for when traps are going to die or when you set them, that kind of thing, how much time you have for everything. You could turn on maniacal monkey notification if you want to AFK really hard. This will tell you when you catch something or you fail to catch something. Idle notifier, you're going to be playing around in this plugin quite a bit if you do any of the notification business. Let me take a look at exactly what I type. I actually keep this almost at the same default. A thing I would change is a hit point warning at 20 and a prayer warning at 10. So this just goes, it'll send you a warning and it'll beep, and it'll go, hey, your hit points are low, or hey, your prayer is low if it goes below these numbers. That's why I keep it that way. This idle notification delay is one of the biggest things that you can be changing. This sends a message when you're AFK in the chat when you're not doing something. Like I wouldn't be right now, but I haven't started doing anything, so it hasn't notified me. I know people that keep this at like 500 milliseconds depending on what they do. I usually just keep it at the default, but definitely worth playing around with. Idle movement notifications, I turn on or off depending on what I'm doing as well. This is super handy if you're doing something like blood rune crafting and you want it to tell me, like, let's test it here. I stopped walking here, and if I wait, took it a second, but you can see it beeps and it goes, I've stopped moving. Handy if you're doing rune crafting and things like that, and there's some other uses, I'm sure, but keeping it off for now. It depends on what I'm doing. I'll turn it back on. It's really annoying for general stuff. Implings, this one's good. Runelite can actually notify you in your chat if an impling is even in the area, which is really, really good. Things like dragon implings, things like lucky implings, crystal implings, definitely getting a notify from me. I don't bother notifying with ninjas and magpies because I might not decide to catch them, but I at least tell it to highlight. That way I can go catch them and see them more easily. The rest of these I'm not going to catch if they're flying around, so I just keep them the way they are. I also turn on show spawn locations in Puro Puro. I don't do Puro Puro very often, but that's handy to see for sure. And I also do show name on minimap. This makes it so much easier to find the impling you're hunting for. You get that beep that you've got a crystal impling in the elf area, and you're like, where is it? Where is it? And then you look on your minimap. Oh, it's right, in the top left here. Really, really handy. Enable the info panel. Not sure what that refers to exactly. Probably just keep it on. The instanced map is kind of cool. If you right click here, you can do show instance map. And this just shows a real basic map. Very simple. Doesn't even lag the game. It instantly appears. Can be handy in a lot of cases. Usually I'll just use the basic world map though and go to where I want to go. See, in this case, Sepulcher doesn't even have a map. So the instance map comes in handy because it actually does. Lots of cool things it can do. Interface styles is cool. I don't use an interface style personally. Let me see if I do anything with this. Yeah, I don't even keep this plugin on personally, but there's a lot of cool stuff it can do. And you can change the way your UI looks, which is very neat. You can change it to look like 2005 if you want, 2006. Oh yeah, you can change the color of the health bars, the way they look, so they look more like RS2, that kind of thing. Or you can even change the left click. I didn't even know that. So it like sucks in. I keep this guy off, but definitely worth playing around with if any of that looks cool to you. I really like inventory grid and I keep it on. I like to keep this at 100 ms. That way I know I'm dragging things. See, it takes a second there. This lines up with the shift anti-drag plugin from before. I don't like highlighting the background because that makes it really hard to see. Or not highlight background. Show grid. There we go. So now you can just see, hey, I know exactly where I'm going to drag my item to, and it shows in green. Very, very handy. Inventory setups is that external plugin I grabbed earlier. This is so good. It's so good. And let me explain. You can keep all of this basically as it is. It's maybe worth playing with if you want to take a look, but it doesn't matter too much. It adds this button here. And let's say I want a Sepulcher setup, right? So I've pulled out the exact right items I need for Sepulcher. I'm going to hit this plus. And I'm going to call it Hallowed Sepulcher. Boom. Okay, now I'm going to turn on bank filtering. Only highlight items that are missing. Enable highlighting. So now, if I hit this eyeball, it shows me my setup. It'll even show the spell book I need. And if I go to the bank, boom, it shows me all of my items lined up. And if you click off, it goes away. So it's not like holding you hostage. And then when you back out of the screen, it goes back. So, so good. I would do these for every Slayer task, honestly. This is such an underrated plugin. Because it's external, so few people know about it. But this is genuinely so helpful. So, so helpful. This update button too allows you, let's say I needed one more plank. I could add one more plank here, hit update, and then it would put one more plank here. I use it for raids, Slayer, farm runs, everything you can think of. It's so, so good. You can even export. If I look here, it'll put in your clipboard text you can paste. And if you give this to a friend, they can paste in that data and they can take your setup. So you don't even have to make them yourself necessarily. Super helpful, super underrated. Definitely use it. Inventory tags. This is another controversial one, but really helpful for things like raids for gear switches. If I go configure inventory tags, if you hold shift or you just right click your inventory and you can hit configure inventory tags. I want planks to have a red outline. Now they have a red outline. I don't know why you would want that, but you can do it. What a lot of people will do is mark all their melee gear red, all their range gear green, all their magic gear blue, and that way they can immediately switch really easily. A lot of people hate on this, saying it's super ugly. I get that, but it's also very, very helpful for knowing your switches and stuff. I use it personally. A lot of people don't. It's up to your preference. Inventory tags. I did that. Inventory viewer. I'm not sure the exact use case for this. I've used it while streaming, so I could hide this panel to my stream and then just show my inventory at all times. But other than that, I can't really think of a use. I usually just keep it off. Item charges. Yep, so I just keep this all as it is. This just shows you the amount of charges on items in a little prompt. Very, very neat. And it'll warn you, you know, when a dodgy necklace breaks or when a binding necklace breaks, that kind of thing. How many charges different things have. It'll show a little overlay over the item with the amount. Very, very handy. Item identification is kind of cool if you find yourself getting mixed up on certain items. I would keep it to, well, it's up to you. Short will show just the first letter of an item you hover over, and medium shows the full word. I keep the color the same. I'll do this for herbs, and I'll do it for saplings and seeds. So let me see if I have anything. Yeah. So here it shows an R, so I know that's a Ranar. If I change this to medium, it'll say Ranar. It depends what I'm doing. There's Ranar seeds, Torstal seed. It'll do saplings too, which is very handy. You can't really tell saplings apart. Do I have a spirit sapling? I do. There, it's a spirit. Very, very handy. Item prices is cool. This makes it so when you examine something, it'll show you the value, like you can see here. If you turn off hide tooltips on inventory items, you can actually make it so when you hover, it shows the value right there. You can also turn off show high alchemy values. It depends on what you're doing, whether you want that on or off. This can be kind of cool on your inventory if you want. I personally hide it, kind of clutters it. If you do show prices while alching, it'll show this anyway as you're alching, which is pretty cool. Definitely a handy plugin. Item stats will show things like the weight on a tooltip, that kind of thing. What I like to do is show a theoretical stat change in the tooltip. And other than that, I just keep this all as it is. I don't change the colors or anything else. You can play around with this if you want, but I find it good as is. Let's see, item stats. Key remapping, this one's gigantic. Turn this puppy on. What you'll do is you can do remap F keys, and you can change these to any key you want, which is incredibly good. It'll also remap the camera. So what it'll do is now you can see it has press enter to chat, which is like in RS2. So now I have to hit enter to start typing. When I'm not typing, I can do WASD to control the camera. I love this. It's amazing. I love that they added it. So helpful, so helpful. I would hit remap F keys and I would play around with that. I hate using my F keys to hit my inventory setups. You can even change these to different things. Like maybe I want F1 to be Q. Now you can do it. Super, super crazy helpful. Kingdom Miscellanea, that shows the amount of favor when inside Miscellanea. Just keep it on. No reason not to. I don't know why that's off by default. Koran Library. I haven't gotten to use this personally because I finished books before the Runelite plugin even came out for it. But this will show you where all of the books are in Arceus Library, and you just walk there and go get them. It's amazing. Definitely keep this guy on. This changes the chat icons for players on League Worlds. There's not a league going on right now, but when there's something like the Twisted League happening, you can see, like, I think it's a green smiley face when they're in a world that's with Twisted League, which is cool. Login screen is pretty neat. You can change the login screen to be any of the old ones that you want, whatever you like. You can make it so you can control V on the login, which is so helpful. You can also do a custom one if you want. So if you enter custom here, let me see exactly what you do. If you enter custom here, it'll take whatever picture you put into the .runelite folder that's called login, just loosely, and then it'll display it on your login screen. You can do some funny things with this. Very, very cool. You can also turn off the fire or sync your username between computers. Pretty neat. Loot tracker, that's going on for sure. This plugin's super handy for tracking all of the loot you receive in this plugin. For ignored, this might be the most handy part of this. You can put things that don't show up in your loot tracker. So you can put things like, I don't want goblins to show up, and I don't want bronze spears to show up, just as an example. I keep the rest of this the same, although you can play with it, of course. And I haven't done anything yet, but it would normally show you, hey, I just did a sepulcher run with this many coffins, and I got this amount of loot that's worth this much. Very, very cool. This is also synced to your profile on runelite.net if you're logged in, and it'll store that forever. So definitely worth logging in if you haven't done that yet. Let's see, moving on. Low detail, you can turn this on, and it literally just deletes a bunch of the textures. This is helpful if you really want to run the game faster, but I don't need to. I have a powerful computer. Keeping it off. Mage Training Arena. Keep all this stuff on by default. This just shows you helpful overlays in the Mage Training Arena. Menu Entry Swapper. This is a huge one. This is one of the most useful plugins for sure. Let me get the exact ones I use. I do customizable shift click. So what this lets you do is configure your shift click. So when I use shift, maybe I don't want it to be drop. I want it to be use. So if I click this and I hit save, that's how it will be. This is super helpful. You can make it so all your gear is shift click equip if you want, or something like that. This lets you do so many things creatively. Definitely worth tinkering with. A bunch of these are just for specific things. So this will change your shift click for deposit and withdraw in your bank. So you can do deposit all is what I do for mine, and I can do withdraw all. So this means, let's say I've used some of this and some of these in my sepulcher run, for example. So, and maybe I have this out and some of these. I want to get rid of all of these. So if I hold shift, it's on deposit all. So boom, boom, boom. And then if I release shift click, now I can pull up my items again really quick. Super handy for banking. Berry swapping with use is genuinely almost OP. You can make it so when you left click bones, it's use, and you can just use it on an altar over and over. It's super, super helpful. The rest of these are pretty small. You can make it so your teleports have left clicks like this. I think I keep most of these the same. It depends on what you're doing. You need to look at it for what you want to do. I definitely want to do enter corrupted for corrupted gauntlet, because why would I ever want to do regular gauntlet? Pick, you should swap with pick lots, because there's no reason you would do regular pick in Chambers of Xerix. Anything else different? Yes. You can make it so when you shift click NPC contact, it does the last person you contacted. Really good if you're doing ZMI and want to repair your pouches. I keep these the same. You can swap your teleport spells to a different spell on shift click, which is handy for like teleporting to regular Varrock instead of the Grand Exchange if you've done the diary, for example. And I also make my shift buy and my shift sell 50. This makes it super fast, especially on something like an Iron Man where you're dealing with shops a lot. Very, very handy. That's about it for that. Minimap. I keep it all the same. You can even hide it if you want and change the colors. I keep it the same. Mining. This shows a little timer on things you're mining for how long it takes for it to respawn. I would just keep this guy on. Motherload mine is great. I don't really change any of this. This just shows helpful information while you're doing mining. Things like a UI overlay, and it'll show the amount of gems you've found, the amount of stuff you mined, that kind of thing. Mouse tooltips is that thing that is showing these little tooltips when I hover over items. I keep these all the same. I probably wouldn't show spellbook tooltips because, as an example, if we do that, like, it gets kind of annoying having these up and telling you everything. Music's really cool because you can mute certain things out of the sound. I typically don't play the sound on anyway, so I don't really mess with this too much. But if there's an annoying sound in an area, you might be able to mix it out using this plugin. NPC aggression timer. This was made by the glorious Wooks. Thank you, Wooks, for this amazing plugin. This definitely turn on. If I turn on always active, I can kind of show off how it works. I'm going to leave the dungeon so it starts working. What you can do is type it in an NPC's name. For me, I'll do something like crab. That's probably the most useful thing. Now we see these lines. So there's actually a timer going at all times. I'm going to put notify expiration to show timer. But what it'll do is when you walk over this line, like so, it'll reset the timer on aggression. And when you're fighting something that you have typed in here, like ammonite crabs I would be fighting, it'll show a little timer here for 20 minutes on the aggression. And when it runs out, it'll notify you if you have this on, and it'll tell you, hey, your aggression ran out, you need to reset it. Then you can just walk up to the line, walk one tile over to reset the aggression, and walk back. I probably wouldn't keep it on always active and just show it for the NPC that you're fighting, but it can be super helpful. I use it at places like Gargoyles or Cuirass, places where I AFK a lot. NPC indicators. This is a very good one. Okay, let's just copy my list over. I highlight all of the farming people that you pay to protect your crops. That way they're really easy to find. Because they wander around and stuff, I want to keep them in here. And then I'll put certain things like the flower in the Hespori fight, or crystal implings, the bankers, Hydra. I'll highlight bosses because I turn on both highlight hull and highlight timer. And as an example, I want this guy highlighted, right? So we type in mysterious stranger. Now he's highlighted. So we can see the hull shows the exact amount of tiles the NPC takes up. So if this was like a moss giant, it would take up like a bunch of tiles. For bosses, this lets you see where exactly you're allowed to stand before your character will start attacking it, which can be extremely helpful if the boss has like a stomp mechanic or something like that. I'll use it for all the TOB bosses, things like that. You can also do like things like draw a name above it. That's the mysterious stranger. You can draw names on the minimap. That's the mysterious stranger. Highlight menu names. What does this even do? Highlight NPC. Oh, that's kind of cool. It colors the NPC that you're right-clicking. I keep that off, though. I think that would be kind of annoying. Ignore dead NPCs is good if something has a long death cycle. If they're dead, you don't need to see the colors on it. Like, just keep it off. Show respawn timer can be good. I turn it on or off depending on the situation. But if you have it on and kill something, it'll show a tile where it's going to respawn and a timer. Really, really good for Slayer tasks. Definitely use it for that. Newsfeed. This is a little newsfeed tab. I don't look at it too often, but it'll show you, updates for Runelite or, Twitter updates. Everything the JMods tweet or anything the official old school RS tweet will show up here. And also show like news updates and things like that. Just for the game in general. Nightmare Zone. You can play around with this quite a bit. I do override NMZ overlay because the normal one is pretty ugly. I'll turn on Power Surge notification. Usually you just want this one if you're training XP, but you can turn on notifications for all the other ones too if you're using them. I'll turn on an overload notification for when that runs out or when my absorption gets low enough. Usually I keep it around maybe 100. That way when my absorption runs below 100, it'll warn me, hey, your absorption's getting kind of low. Maybe refill it. Notes. This literally just lets you take notes here. La-da-dee, la-da-doo, la-da-dum. Then it'll save it between sessions. Pretty cool. Object markers. Definitely turn that guy on. I try to remember color per object because why wouldn't you? But this is different than ground markers because you can mark objects. So like I want this rubble to be highlighted. Or this justiciar. You can highlight things like entrances to places, which is handy. I did that at Fossil Island to get the entrance to the dungeon there. Things like that. Really, really handy. Opponent information is kind of cool. it will show information about a thing you're fighting. Usually it's just a player. Look up players on interaction is pretty cool because if someone attacks you, it'll show you their stats. Or if you get maybe an invite to a raid or something, like someone trades you, someone's following you, that kind of thing, then it'll show you their stats, which can be really important information. The party plugin, this allows a join button on your name in Discord and allows people to make a party with you. And then it'll show things like their health, their prayer. Very, very, very cool. I don't see a lot of people using this, but they definitely should. At places like TOB, you don't need it because it has its own overlay. But even a place like Raids 1, you could just throw it on. Or like group bossing. Maybe you're going to Bando's trip or something. You could throw the boys in here and then see them. Pest control shows some information at pest control. Just keep it on. Player indicators is very cool. You can have it highlight people when they're your friend. You can have it highlight friends, chat members, team members from Discord. You can also do highlight others. I do this when I go in the wilderness. So that way, if I see someone that's not in my clan, I immediately know, hey, this could be a threat or something. And it'll highlight them in red. You can also draw tiles on your players. So like if I do this, I see the people's names, stuff like that. Player owned house plugin doesn't do a whole ton. It shows some icons on the minimap, that kind of thing. Also shows you if burners are lit or unlit. Just keep it on. Poison. You want to keep it to change the HP orb icon that makes it turn green when you're poisoned, so it's more obvious. You can show an info box when you're poisoned too, but I really don't bother. Like, it's obvious you're poisoned if this is green. Prayer. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. I like to turn on the prayer flick helper. This shows you a 1-tick timer on your prayer, so you can just click every time it gets to the end. Handy if you're doing something like Slayer and you want a 1-tick flick. You can do show prayer bar as well. So if I turn on a prayer here, it shows a little bar, and it shows the 1-tick flick on it too. Kind of cool. You can turn on this guy, replace orb text with prayer timers. That way, if you turn on a prayer, it'll show you how many minutes before you run out of prayer, or seconds. Pretty cool. I would probably keep that off. It's kind of ugly, and I want to know my exact prayer points rather than the time left. But puzzle solver. This is separate from the clue solver. It shows you how to solve puzzle boxes. I keep this as is. If you want to be a purist and not cheat, you can turn it off. It's whatever your opinion is. Pyramid Plunder. This just shows some basic stuff in Pyramid Plunder. You don't really need to change any of it. Just keep it on. Highlight stuff. Shows a timer. That kind of thing. Quest list is really cool. It shows in your quest page. You can change it so, hey, I don't want to see quests I've already completed. So here we only see the mini quests I have since I have all the quests done. Or you can just keep it on and show completed. You can also search. So maybe Song of the Elves. There it is. Song of the Elves. Pretty cool. Random events is handy. I will turn on the Genie and I will turn on the Quizmaster. Not Quizmaster. Surprise Exam. Both of these give you XP and are worth doing. Genie, you just talk to and get a lamp. He's the best event in the game. The other ones are worth using depending on where you are in your account. So if you maybe want mazes, turn on Mysterious Old Man, that kind of thing. You can change the notification settings here. You can also do remove others menu option. So when someone else has a REM event, you can't click on it. Very, very handy. Regeneration meter. This is a handy one. If we pop this open. You can show your special attack regen. So it'll show a little ring that shows you how long before your special attack regens for the next tick. I like to show this at full health. This shows your timer before it heals. This is really helpful if you are trying to keep your stats boosted as well, because every time you flick Rapid Heal, it resets the timer. So this will actually keep your stats, your health boosted if you keep that in mind. And it'll also show how long before you get a health regen if it's lower. Really, really handy. I don't do anything with the notifications or anything. That would be really annoying. I just keep it as is. Report button is kind of cool. It just changes the text down here. So you can change your time format to be military or not military. And then you can change it to be like, maybe I want to show UTC time at the bottom, or I want to show Jagex HQ time. Or maybe I want to see the date. You can play around with it. I keep it on login timer. That just shows how long you're logged in. That's kind of cool. I like to keep it that way. Almost at the end here. Rogue's Den just shows you some help in Rogue's Den. Keep it on. Run energy. That's kind of cool. You can replace it with time left before you run out of run. I prefer to just keep it as text showing my exact run energy. I think that's better. Rune pouch. This will show an icon over your rune pouch, what runes you've got in it. So if I pull out my pouch, boom, I've got these little icons here showing how many of each rune and what type of rune. Pretty cool. I just keep it the way it is. It's fine the way it is. Runelite for the general settings. We did that. Rune crafting. A lot of this is going to differ depending on what you do. Maybe you don't want to highlight all of these and are just doing, let's say, death runes. So you would just highlight the Rift in the Abyss. That's death runes or something like that. It'll show you when a pouch degrades and it'll highlight the Dark Mage. Pretty handy. Just keep it the way it is. Screen markers is pretty cool. That's this here. You don't need to change anything, but it lets you draw little things on your screen. So, boom. I want to color this. Maybe fill it with color. Kind of handy for things like construction or things like that. And you can always just hide the visual. I have ones for crafting and that kind of thing. So there's a lot you can do with it. Screenshot's cool. This will save a screenshot in your Runelite folder for certain things happening. So maybe you get a pet drop. It'll screenshot that. Throw it in. I like to screenshot certain other things. Let me get it. I honestly keep this all as is. If there's certain things you want screenshotted, you can change it. Maybe you want it to show pretty valuable drops or something like that. Maybe untradables. You can even have it show you kicks from clan chat if you want to keep track of that. Pretty handy if you want to keep track of like a ban list or something. Skill calculator. This is this here. You don't need to change anything in it, but all it does is show you current level, target level. You can change this. Maybe I want to get to 98 in mining. And I can go see, oh, I need to mine 4,000 amethysts to get to the next level. Skybox. That's one of my favorites. Let me show it off really quick. Definitely turn that on. It just looks really nice. Remember, I had the black vision in the skybox before. Now I've got a nice blue for the swamp. It's kind of like a teal. Depending on the area, it'll have a different color. I know at Zia Rune Crafting, it's purple. Most of the areas, it's just a regular blue. Just looks really nice. Slayer. This shows important information while doing Slayer. I like to turn on highlight targets. This makes it so when you have a task, the enemies that count as a task will be highlighted in red. And this really helps me not find them or anything, but it helps me remember when my task is done and when to leave. Because as soon as you finish a task, their color goes away. So really handy for that. Other than that, I keep everything the same. I want to be notified for superior, that kind of thing. Smelting shows you basic information for smelting. Just keep it on. Special attack counter. This tracks the amount of times you've hit with a special attack that drains defense. Just keep it on. Really handy for anywhere you're using that kind of special attack. Status bars is cool. Shows these 2 bars with your current health and prayer. I don't use them on resizable mode, but in fixed mode, they're really cool. It just takes up the 2 pillars. Let's see if I can show that. See, it just replaces your pillars with those. Very cool. If you're using fixed mode, definitely do that. Stretch mode, we did that. Team capes is helpful if you are doing PvP, that kind of thing. I'm really not worried about what color team capes people have, so I keep that off, honestly. Tears of Gothic shows timers on when all the streams will move at Tears of Gothic. Keep that on for sure. It's so helpful. Tile indicators is another big one. This lets you see where you're clicking to. And I like to keep highlight hover tile on. This shows you exactly where you're going to click to. And even if you click like out here, it'll try to path it correctly. Just kind of neat. I also keep on highlight current true tile. This lets me see where I am according to the server. So that blue tile is always where I am. Really helpful for things like Sepulcher or any type of raiding or bossing. You can change the colors if you want, but I keep it as is. Time tracking just enables this timers. This lets you see where all your farm runs are at with the time on growing. I haven't looked at the patches on this client, so it's not going to be updated. But it'll keep track of things like birdhouses, herbs, trees, fruit trees, that kind of thing. Anything helpful that could have a timer, you'll find it here. You can also add personal timers if you want. I use ones outside of Runelite personally, but you can use this if you want to use the client for everything. Timers, this will show the amount of time on a bunch of different things. Things like when your anti-fire is going to run out, when your cannon's going to break, when your divine potions are going to run out. This is incredibly important for bossing. I would just keep this all on as is. Tithe Farm, this highlights some stuff at Tithe Farm. Just keep it on. Twitch, this is kind of cool. It can integrate your Twitch chat into your regular chat, so you don't need to even look at it. If you do Twitch streaming, definitely give this a look. It can be handy. Virtual levels is kind of cool. This lets you see what your levels would be if they went above 99. So I can see you have 101 HP here, 100 ranged. If you're keeping this on like I do, I would keep virtual total level off because I want to know what my actual total level is, not what my virtual is. Wiki just lets you change the left click to search if you want. Normally I would keep it on lookup anyway so I can look up items, but you can change that depending on how you use it. Wintertot, this just gives you basic information for Wintertot. Don't really change anything here, I just keep it as is. Woodcutting, again, shows you basic information for woodcutting. I just keep this on as is. World Hopper. This, you can play around with the hotkey. This lets you hop to the previous world on the list or the next world. Really, really handy. There's a bunch of little things like showing world ping is really important. Displaying current ping is pretty cool. Definitely keep that one on. That shows your MS up here. And then on the world switcher, it'll show you the ping of all the different worlds. So you definitely want to hop on worlds that have low ping most of the time, and this helps keep track of that. Pretty cool. World map, this just adds a bunch of tooltips and destinations to the world map. So like if I go here, let's say I want to know what this fairy ring is, I can hover over it and it says ALQ. Bunch of little things that help with that. Just keep it on as is. XP drop lets you mess around with the drops of XP. I usually keep this all the same and just keep it on. That you can play around with like the colors of when you get melee prayers or that kind of thing. XP globes, this makes globes pop up when you get XP. You can keep it off if you want. I can understand not wanting that. But keeping it on lets you, when a globe pops up, it'll pop up in this area, and you can hover over it to see your XP. You can also hold Alt to move the orb around if you want. And you can do things like hide maxed skills, which I usually do, because I don't want to really see XP for those. Or change the colors and size of the arcs. I usually play around with that a little bit, but the default works too. XP tracker. I don't really mess with the settings in here, but that's just this. So when you get XP, they pop up here. And you can right-click and hit reset to change your XP in case... Like, it'll show your XP an hour or the amount of XP you've gained so far in the session, that kind of thing. Pretty handy, for sure. XP Updater, this is cool if you use any of these websites. Crystal Math Labs, Temple OSRS, or Wise Old Man. These let you look up your stats on those and, calculate your EHP or things like that. Useful if you're going for ranks or anything like that. I usually will send it to Wise Old Man because that's a new open source project and I want to support them. And other than that, guys, that's it. That's all of the plugins I've got. I'm sure a lot of things I've gotten wrong or you do differently, but for the most part, this should be accurate. So leave a like if you liked it, or subscribe. Thanks, guys.